Allow me, first of all, to express my deepest condolences to the relatives and friends of Miss Younge on her passing. I want to probably give a synopsis of the sequence of events since the discovery of Miss Younge's body in the pool at the hotel. After the body was discovered on the 24th, that body was taken to the Lenora Cottage Hospital, and at the Lenora Cottage Hospital, she was formally pronounced dead before arrival. The doctors there were then able to examine the body, and then the police took custody of the body, and the body was taken to the funeral home at Ezekiel Funeral Home, where the body remained, first of all, at Lenora Cottage Hospital. Once the police took custody, the body was placed in a body bag that was sealed by the police. It was then taken to the funeral home, where it remained until an autopsy was done. That autopsy, as you know, before the autopsy, there was a call both by the family and members of the public for us to have an independent forensic pathologist to do the autopsy. The family, through their lawyer, Mr. Darren Wade, identified a pathologist from the United States of America, Dr. Gary Collins. I think he's the chief pathologist for the state of Delaware. He was contacted and he was brought into Guyana to be part of the autopsy for Miss Younge. While the family brought in that pathologist, the government also secured the services of two other pathologists, two eminent pathologists, Dr. Shubhakar Kara Paul, who is currently a consultant forensic pathologist in the Office of the Attorney General in Barbados. Dr. Paul previously trained in India, worked in India as a pathologist, and having served in India, moved on to the United Kingdom, where he, for many years, was a forensic pathology examiner for several of the parishes in the United Kingdom. Dr. Paul then came to Barbados, and he has been working there since, looking at very high-profile case in and around the Caribbean. That's one of the pathologists that we were able to secure his service. In addition to Dr. Paul, we also were able to get the services of Dr. Glenn Rudner, who is a clinical pathology professor at Mount Sinai. Professor Rudner previously worked at Wayne State University, where he trained. Then he went to Duke University and served in several other academic institutions before working at Walter Reed Army Hospital and then coming over to Mount Sinai. So Professor Rudner has a lot of technical experience and has published a number of articles and books relating to forensic pathology. So we have three very eminent pathologists who were part of this team that was assembled before the autopsy. Then on Monday, all three pathologists concur, and they assembled at Balwant Singh Hospital. The body of Miss Younge was brought from the Ezekiel Funeral Home early in the morning and got to the Balwant Singh Hospital at about 7 a.m. And the reason why it was brought to the hospital was for it to undergo a total body scan, and that was done by two means. First of all, a total scan was done by X-rays, and then secondly, by a CT scanner. This was to ascertain whether there were any damages to the bone, whether there were any fractures, and having concluded that body scan, the pathologists, along with the radiologists, were able to concur, and at that point in time, they determined that there were no fractures or no changes to the bones. Having arrived at that conclusion among themselves, they then had a meeting with the family, and at that meeting, they also were able to detail their findings from the x-rays and from the CT scan. In that meeting, among the family members that were consulted or these matters were discussed with, it included the mother, an aunt, the grandmother, 2 nurses who were present in the meeting, along with their lawyer, and of course, the pathologist that the family requested, and a doctor, Dr. Caleb, who was also present on the family's behalf. This meeting took place sometime between 10 in the morning and lasted until about 12 noon. After which, after those discussions about their findings, they also explained to the family the next steps, what would be done, how the autopsy would proceed, what steps they would be taking, and so forth. The pathologist then, around 1:17, started the autopsy. And this autopsy lasted from about 1:17 to about 14 hours 45. And throughout that period, they took a number of very detailed steps. First of all, one of the first things that they did was to take photographs of Miss Younge's body to ensure that, to document whatever was on the body. While they were taking photographs, videos were also taken, both by the family and the police. And so all this documentary evidence is available. Having completed the photographs and videoing of the body, they then proceeded to do the autopsy. And in doing the autopsy, they went very sequentially, one step at a time and in different parts of the body. And when they did the autopsy, they also took samples of fluids from the stomach, from the lung, from the blood, and they have all these samples along with samples of various organs in the body. From these findings, those samples were taken and given to the police, and the police then took that into custody or into their as part of their evidence. In addition to doing all of that, at the end of the autopsy, the 3 pathologists then got together, they had a discussion, and they made certain conclusions. Among the conclusions, they concluded that Ms. Younge died by drowning. They then had another meeting, a second meeting, with the family, and during that meeting, again, there was the presence of the lawyer, Mr. Darren Wade. There was also the presence of the mother and aunt. Apparently there were 2 aunts, 2 nurses, and also the grandmother. And they were allowed to ask any questions that they had of the findings. They were explained what the findings were, and then they asked questions, and those answers were provided. The questions were answered by Dr. Collins, who were the ones explaining what they found. At the conclusion of that, the pathologist then departed, and they also explained that from the samples that were taken, that there would be a number of tests that would have to be completed. Again, once the formal autopsy was over and these explanations were given, the body of Miss Younge was handed over to the family. And the samples that were taken, and having been in those samples were taken by the police and stored properly, and arrangements were made by the police with Mount Sinai to do the analysis of these samples. And there were 3 big sets of examinations that would be done by Mount Sinai and the National Medical Services Laboratories, which is a reference laboratory, forensic reference laboratory in the United States. So Mount Sinai would be doing the histopathology examination by their board-certified pathologists, and they would also be doing the molecular and DNA analysis. The comprehensive toxicological studies would be done by the National Medical Laboratory Services. These samples have since been sent to both institutions, and throughout the process, they have been under the police's custody, because from the time the police collected the samples, they stored them, and then they moved them across to the United States. A policeman took them physically to the United States and to Mount Sinai and to the National Medical Services Laboratory. We now await the results from these examination, and once those exams are in, the pathologists would conclude their final report. After the autopsy on Monday, the pathologist issued a preliminary report, and in that detailed preliminary report of the findings that they found throughout the autopsy, they were able to say that Miss Younge died by drowning. And that is stated very clearly in the report. So this was the process that took place. It was a very clear, detailed process. And as you can see, it lasted several hours. Upon the completion of this process, the lawyer for the family expressed their gratitude and expressed how detailed this process was and their satisfaction with the process. The other doctor who witnessed the autopsy on behalf of the family, Dr. Caleb, also did a similar thing where he expressed his satisfaction with the process. During the autopsy, this was witnessed not only by the family doctor, Dr. Caleb, and with the Dr. Collins, the pathologist who participated in the autopsy, but it was also witnessed by a nurse who was present on behalf of the family in the room where the autopsy was being done, by a family member who was also there witnessing the autopsy. And then they had another person who was doing the video from start to end. So this whole process was documented from the very beginning right up to the end. And everyone who witnessed this expressed their satisfaction with how this process went. So we are very clear that it was very transparent, everybody was satisfied, and every single question that was asked of the pathologist was answered. Now, this evening we understand that there is now a request for another pathologist to come into the country to do another autopsy. But since Monday, at the completion of the autopsy, the body was handed over to the family and was no longer in police custody. This then, if another autopsy is being done, it would be done, but we don't know. Since this body was not secured, we don't know what would have happened to the body from Monday to whenever that autopsy would be done. And this is something that I'm not sure what would be the medical legal effect of that second autopsy. There has been a request, I understand, for this person who is coming in to be accredited by the medical council. Now, the medical council is an independent body, and once an application is made to the council obviously would go through scrutinizing the application and in its own judgment would make a determination whether that person is fit to practice medicine in Guyana. And once they make that conclusion and they make their decision, then that person is either allowed or disallowed to practice here. And so my understanding is that a request was made, and in due course, the medical council would consider that request. But this is where we are. It seems like there are elements out there who want to delay this process, create controversies in this process, and to what end, I'm not sure, because we have a very transparent process with scientific evidence of what took place, and this was done by 3 eminent independent forensic pathologists. And their conclusion, these 3 eminent forensic pathologists, one of whom represented the interests of the family, because the family was the one who secured the services of Dr. Collins, all 3 of them have concurred that Ms. Younge died by drowning. And they went through a very thorough autopsy. So having a second autopsy, I'm not sure what that autopsy would find. And it is also questionable since the body has since been handed over to the family and was not within the protection of the police. So I thought that it's important that we have these facts out there so that people would know the facts and not be guided by a lot of the emotions that would have surrounded this case. But we should look at things in a very logical way, in a very scientific way. And once we have the facts, I'm sure we'll be able to make the right decisions. Once again, I would like to express my sincerest condolences to the family of Ms. Younge, and we hope that all those who want to make mischief would desist from doing so. Here we have lost a beautiful young lady, and we should allow the family and everyone to mourn for this young woman and not to use it in any way to stir unrest in the country as we have seen over the last couple of days. Thank you.